The Imperial flagship unwavering axiom hung in space like a perfect geometric theorem, all clean lines, sharp angles, and crystalline surfaces that caught and refracted starlight in calculated patterns. It was, Elian Mercer thought, the perfect extension of its master. The shuttle bay sealed behind him with a pressurized hiss. Two guards flanked him immediately, their faces concealed behind reflective helmets that mirrored his own nervous expression back at him. Neither spoke. They simply gestured for him to follow, their movements as precise as clockwork. "I'd like to freshen up before meeting Her Imperial Majesty," Elian said, adjusting the collar of his formal diplomatic attire. The guards maintained their silence, guiding him through corridors of polished obsidian and gleaming metal. The Vexian Empire had expanded across 17 star systems in just 30 years, a pace of conquest unprecedented in galactic history. Not through overwhelming military might, but through the perfect strategic mind of Empress Vexia, who had never lost a battle, a negotiation, or apparently even a game of chance. The human colonies on the frontier had fallen one by one, until Earth's government had assembled this desperate final diplomatic mission. And they sent me, a mid-level diplomat with a spotty record, because nobody else would volunteer for what they assume is a suicide mission. Elian was led into a preparation chamber. A small drone hovered at eye level, scanning him with a blue light. Contaminants detected. Biological impurities must be removed before Imperial audience, it announced in a metallic voice. "Excuse me, but Before Elian could protest, the chamber filled with a fine mist that tingled against his skin. When it dissipated, he noted with embarrassment that even the microscopic dirt under his fingernails had vanished. The doors at the far end of the chamber slid open. The guards resumed their positions beside him. "Her Imperial Majesty does not tolerate imperfection," one guard finally spoke, voice modulated to mechanical flatness. "You will maintain a distance of 3 meters at all times. You will speak only when addressed directly. Violation of protocol results in immediate removal." Removed from the room or from existence? Elian wondered but kept the thought to himself. The throne room defied expectation. Instead of ostentatious displays of wealth or power, it was starkly minimalist, a vast chamber of black stone with a single raised dais in the center. Seated upon a throne of what appeared to be a single perfect crystal was Empress Vexia. She was, in a word, breathtaking. Her skin was alabaster white with the faintest iridescent sheen, like mother of pearl. Hair like liquid platinum fell in a precise geometric cut to her shoulders. But it was her eyes that captivated Elian, solid silver with no discernible pupil or iris, yet somehow conveying an intelligence so piercing he felt she could see through his skin to the beating of his heart beneath. "Ambassador Mercer of Earth," she said, her voice musical yet devoid of warmth. "You have traveled 43.6 light years to present terms of surrender that I will not accept." Elian swallowed hard. "Your Majesty, I come with proposals for mutual cooperation, not surrender." A slight tilt of her head, the first hint of anything resembling emotion. "Curious. Your government's communications indicated otherwise." "Then my government has misunderstood its own position," Elian replied, surprising himself with his boldness. "I'm authorized to negotiate terms of alliance that preserve Earth's sovereignty while acknowledging the Vexian Empire's superior position." The Empress's perfect posture didn't change, but something flickered across her metallic eyes. "You speak differently than your predecessors. They offered flattery, then threats, then pleas." She rose from her throne with fluid grace. "You offer honesty. Unusual." She descended the steps, and Elian noted the guards tensing. Apparently, the Empress rarely left her throne during audiences. "They said you never make errors in judgment," Elian said, holding his ground as she approached. "I'm counting on that perfect judgment now." Vexia stopped exactly 3 meters away, studying him as one might examine an unexpected variable in an equation. "Most interesting," she said, and for the briefest moment, Elian thought he detected something like curiosity in her perfect features. "Your vital signs indicate fear, yet you do not conduct yourself as one who is afraid." "Fear is natural when meeting someone of your power," Elian admitted. "But fear shouldn't dictate action. A perspective I have not encountered before." She circled him slowly, her movements fluid. "In my experience, all sentient behavior is dictated by fear, greed, or ambition." "Not all behavior, Your Majesty." "No." For the first time, something like amusement colored her tone. "What other motivations exist that I have not observed in 17 conquered systems?" Elian turned to face her, breaking protocol. The guard stepped forward, but Vexia raised one slender hand, stopping them. Connection, he said simply. The desire to understand and be understood. The Empress's perfect face remained impassive, but Elian could have sworn something flickered in those silver eyes, a momentary fracture in their metallic perfection. You will remain as our guest, she announced suddenly. We will continue these discussions tomorrow. As Elian was escorted out, he glanced back once. The Crystal Empress had returned to her throne, but her gaze followed him, curious, calculating, and perhaps, just perhaps, confused by the first thing she couldn't immediately categorize and dismiss. In the sterile guest quarters assigned to him, Elian released a shaky breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Something told him he had just witnessed the first hairline crack in an empire built on perfect, emotionless certainty. And somehow, against all logic, that gave him hope. 3 days of negotiations had yielded more progress than anyone had expected. Elian found himself actually enjoying the mental challenge of diplomatic discourse with the Empress. Her mind worked with astonishing clarity, though she seemed perpetually puzzled by his less structured approach. Today, she had suggested they walk through the ship's botanical conservatory, a vast chamber where specimens from all conquered worlds grew in perfectly maintained environments. Your proposal for limited autonomy is mathematically sound, Vexia said as they passed beneath the canopy of a luminescent tree from the Cygnus sector. However, it fails to account for the axiomatic principle of my rule. Which is? Elian asked, admiring how the soft light played across her features, softening their severity. Perfect order requires perfect control. She stopped beside a pool where aquatic flowers bloomed in precise patterns. Partial integration creates systemic inefficiencies. Elian smiled. Life isn't meant to be efficient, Your Majesty. Look here. He knelt beside the pool and pointed to where one flower grew slightly out of alignment. This one's reaching toward the light source. It's inefficient, yes, but it's also adapting, becoming stronger. The Empress tilted her head, studying the anomaly. The gardener will correct this flaw. It's not a flaw. It's a natural variation that might lead to a stronger species. For the first time, Vexia looked genuinely unsettled. You consistently frame imperfection as beneficial. This contradicts everything my civilization is built upon. Maybe that's why you find our conversations interesting, Elian suggested. I'm unpredictable to you. Her silver eyes fixed on him with unnerving intensity. Yes, you are an anomaly in my experience. Others approach me with either sycophantic praise or barely concealed terror. And which do you prefer? Neither is relevant to effective governance. That's not what I asked, Elian pressed gently. What do you prefer, not what's effective? The Empress's perfect composure faltered for a microsecond. I don't understand the distinction. Elian felt a surprising surge of compassion. How lonely must it be to rule galaxies without ever considering your own desires? May I show you something? He asked, extending his hand but stopping short of the prescribed 3-meter distance. The guards tensed, but Vexia raised a hand to still them. With visible hesitation, she stepped forward, closing the distance between them to barely an arm's length. This is a greeting among equals on Earth, Elian explained, slowly extending his hand, palm open. It acknowledges the vulnerability of touch while offering connection. Physical contact is unnecessary for communication, Vexia stated, though her eyes remained fixed on his outstretched hand. Unnecessary, but meaningful. Something shifted in her expression, curiosity overtaking caution. Slowly, she extended her own hand, pale fingers hovering above his palm. The explosion rocked the chamber before their hands could meet. Elian was thrown backward by the blast, disoriented by the sudden chaos of alarms and shouting. Through smoke and falling debris, he saw armed figures emerging, assassins taking advantage of the Empress's rare appearance outside her secure throne room. Before he could process what was happening, a weight crashed into him, pushing him behind a massive planter. It was Vexia herself, covering his body with her own as energy weapons discharged overhead. Stay down, she commanded, her voice unchanged despite the chaos. Yet something was different. Her body against his trembled slightly, and those metallic eyes showed something he couldn't identify. You're protecting me, Elian realized aloud. Illogical, isn't it? She replied, a strange note in her voice as her security forces engaged the attackers. I should prioritize my own safety above all else. Yet I reacted, instinctively. Their faces were inches apart. Elian could see his own reflection in her silver eyes, but beyond that, something else, a hairline fracture in their perfect mirrored surface, like crystal beginning to crack. "Thank you," he whispered. Her expression shifted minutely. "This is disruptive." "You are disruptive, Elian Mercer." It was the first time she had used his given name. The guards quickly neutralized the threat and surrounded them, helping the Empress to her feet. As they were separated, Vexia looked back at Elian with an expression that, on anyone else, he might have called confusion. Later, in his quarters, a royal messenger delivered an unexpected communication. The Empress requested his presence in her private observatory at midnight. No guards. No protocols. Elian felt his heart race. The perfect crystal was beginning to crack. The Imperial Observatory floated in a transparent bubble at the ship's apex, providing an uninterrupted view of the cosmos. Elian entered cautiously, finding Empress Vexia alone, her back to him as she gazed at the stars. "The assassins were from your world," she said without turning. "Not your government. A separatist faction hoping to provoke full-scale war." "I'm sorry," Elian responded, approaching slowly. "Are you injured?" She turned, and Elian stopped in surprise. Gone was her formal imperial attire, replaced by a simple white shift that softened her otherworldly appearance. More shocking still was the thin silvery line running from her temple to her cheek, a crack in her perfect skin revealing something luminous beneath. "You're hurt," he said, instinctively moving closer. "This body is designed to self-repair," she replied, touching the fracture delicately. "Though this damage is unusual." "May I?" Elian asked, raising his hand toward her face. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. With infinite gentleness, he traced the line of light on her cheek. Her skin was cool to the touch, yet softened beneath his fingertips. "What are you?" he whispered. "I am the culmination of my civilization's pursuit of perfection," Vexia answered, her voice quieter than he'd ever heard it. "My biological components are enhanced with crystalline nanostructures. My cognitive functions operate on quantum principles. I was engineered to be the perfect ruler, beyond emotional compromise, beyond error." "And yet you saved me today," Elian said. "You put yourself between me and danger." Her silver eyes met his. "Yes. I've analyzed that decision repeatedly and found no logical explanation." Elian smiled softly. "Perhaps not all decisions need logical explanations." "That concept disturbs me," she admitted, turning back to the star field. "All my life, I've understood the universe as a series of equations to be balanced. Then you arrived, speaking of connection instead of conquest, showing curiosity instead of fear." She paused, seemingly struggling with unfamiliar thoughts. "Tell me something true about yourself, Elian Mercer. Something not in your diplomatic files." The intimacy of the request surprised him. He moved beside her, close enough that their arms nearly touched as they gazed at the stars. "I volunteered for this mission because I have nothing left on Earth," he confessed. "My husband died in the battle for the Proxima colony. After that, I couldn't bear to live among the daily reminders of him. Coming here was a way to either find purpose or find an end." "You anticipated I might kill you," she stated, not a question. "It seemed a strong possibility. Yet you spoke to me without fear from our first meeting." Elian turned to face her. "Not without fear beyond fear. There's a freedom in having already lost what matters most. It lets you see clearly what remains important." "And what is that?" she asked, her silver eyes searching his face. "Genuine connection. Understanding between different minds. The possibility of something new emerging from the space between separate ways of seeing." Vexia's hand rose slowly to touch the place where his fingers had traced her fracture. "I've never known connection. I was engineered to stand apart, elevated above, isolated by design. My genetic architects believed emotion would contaminate perfect judgment." "And what do you believe?" The question hung between them in the starlight. Slowly, with visible uncertainty, Vexia raised her hand and mirrored his earlier gesture, fingers outstretched. Elian met her halfway, their palms touching, fingers intertwining. The contact sent a strange current through him, not unpleasant, but alien and intimate. "I feel disruption when you're near," she whispered. "Systems that have operated flawlessly for decades experience fluctuations. Pathways long dormant activate. It's as though you are rewriting my programming simply by existing in my presence." She stepped closer, their joined hands caught between them. "It should frighten me. It should trigger defensive protocols. Instead, I find myself curious. wanting to understand these new sensations. Elian's free hand rose slowly to cup her face, thumb gently tracing the luminous fracture. May I show you something else humans do? Her slight nod was all the permission he needed. He leaned forward, pressing his lips gently against hers. For a moment, she remained perfectly still. Then, hesitantly, she responded, mimicking his pressure and movement with careful precision that gradually yielded to something more organic, more genuine. When they parted, the crack in her cheek had spread, tiny luminous fissures extending like a delicate web beneath her skin. What's happening to me? She whispered, something like wonder and fear mingling in her voice. I think, Elian said softly, you're beginning to feel. She didn't pull away, but he saw the conflict in her eyes, the battle between newfound sensation and lifelong certainty. My advisors would say you are a weakness I cannot afford, she said, her voice barely audible. That these feelings compromise everything I was created to be. And what do you say? He asked. Her answer came as her lips sought his again, the starlight catching in her spreading fractures, turning her skin to a constellation of cracks through which her inner light began to shine. The negotiation chamber hummed with tension. On one side sat Elian with the Earth delegation who had arrived overnight, grim-faced military officers and stern politicians. Opposite them, Vexia's High Council of strategists and advisors watched with thinly veiled suspicion. Between them sat the Empress herself, changed in ways subtle yet profound. 2 weeks had passed since their night in the observatory. 2 weeks of stolen moments between diplomatic sessions, of Vexia's gradual awakening to emotion, of the luminous fractures spreading beneath her skin despite her attempts to conceal them. The terms offered are unacceptable, announced Admiral Harlow, Earth's chief military representative. We demand full autonomy and a defensive perimeter of at least 3 light-years. Elian noticed the trap immediately. Such demands were designed to be rejected, giving Earth's war faction the pretext they wanted for deploying their new quantum weaponry. Admiral, Elian interjected, that goes beyond our authorized negotiating position. The Admiral's cold stare made it clear. Elian was now considered compromised. The rumors about his growing closeness to the Empress had reached Earth. Across the table, Vexia's chief advisor, Magistrate Krell, leaned to whisper in the Empress's ear. Elian had learned enough of their language to catch fragments, emotional contamination, security risk, purge the human delegation. For the first time in public, Vexia showed a flash of anger, silencing Krell with a sharp gesture. This council will recess for 1 hour, she announced, rising with fluid grace though Elian could see the effort it cost her to maintain composure. The fractures were becoming harder to control, gleaming through the cosmetic layer applied to conceal them. As the delegates filed out, a royal guard approached Elian. Her Majesty requests your presence in the adjacent chamber. Admiral Harlow grabbed Elian's arm. Remember where your loyalties lie, Mercer. My loyalty is to peace, Admiral. Always has been. The private chamber was austere, a simple meeting room with a viewing window overlooking the planet below. Vexia stood with her back to the door, her reflection in the glass revealing the struggle on her face. They know, she said as the door sealed behind him. Both sides. Your people believe you've been compromised by me. My council believes I've been compromised by you. Perhaps we have compromised each other, Elian admitted, moving to stand beside her. But I don't regret it. She turned to him, no longer hiding the fractures that now traced elegant patterns across her face and neck, disappearing beneath her imperial collar. Krell has accessed my biometric data. The changes in my neural pathways, hormone levels, even my crystalline structure, they're accelerating. Is it causing you pain? Elian asked, concerned. Physical discomfort is irrelevant. But the cognitive effects. She pressed her palms against the glass as if steadying herself. I was created to process information with perfect clarity. Now every thought comes laden with feeling. When I consider strategies that would harm Earth, I experience distress because it would hurt you. When I contemplate choices that protect your world but weaken my empire, I feel fear for my people. She turned to him suddenly, her silver eyes now streaked with threads of blue, another physical manifestation of her transformation. My council wants me to have you executed as a destabilizing influence, she said bluntly. They believe removing you will reverse these changes in me. Elian felt his heart constrict, but held her gaze steadily. Will it? No. The changes appear permanent. She stepped closer, taking his hands in hers. But there's more. Your Admiral Harlow, I've access to secure communications. Earth has developed weapons capable of disrupting the quantum fields that maintain my civilization's technology. They believe if they eliminate me, the Empire will fragment. He's wrong, Elian said firmly. Killing you would only ensure that whoever follows would have none of the empathy you're developing. It would guarantee war. Yes. Her grip tightened on his hands. We stand at an impossible junction. If I appear weak to my council, they will move to replace me. If I appear uncompromising to your delegation, they will launch their attack. Elian pulled her closer, pressing his forehead to hers. Then we find a third path. There is no calculable solution where both our civilizations survive intact and we remain together, she whispered, voice breaking with emotion that would have been impossible for her weeks earlier. Then we create one, he insisted. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes, her face now a magnificent network of gleaming fractures through which her inner light pulsed. You still don't understand what you've done to me, do you? What I was before you arrived, the certainty, the clarity, it shattered. Her hands rose to frame his face with trembling intensity. You'll break me completely if this continues. Everything I was designed to be will cease to exist. And what will remain? He asked softly. I don't know, she admitted, the fear and wonder in her voice equally bare. That's what terrifies me. Elian kissed her then, deeply, feeling the strange energy of her being pulsed through the contact. When they separated, a single tear, crystalline and luminous, traced down her fractured cheek. You'll break me, she repeated, a whisper almost like prayer. And still, I cannot turn away. The door chimed, signaling the end of their recess. Composing herself with visible effort, Vexia straightened her imperial regalia. If we cannot find a solution in the next session, she said, both our worlds move toward destruction. Elian nodded grimly. Then we'd better become very creative, very quickly. As they moved to return to the council chamber, Vexia paused, another fracture spreading visibly across her hand. Whatever happens, Elian Mercer, know that you have accomplished what no weapon or stratagem could. You have fundamentally altered the unalterable. She pressed her fractured palm to his chest, over his heart. Whether that proves our salvation or our undoing remains to be seen. Fractures in Starlight. Part 5. Reforged. The Imperial flagship shuddered under the impact of Earth's first quantum strike. Emergency lights bathed the command center in crimson as Vexia's officers reported damage across multiple systems. Shields at 60% capacity, announced the defense minister. Earth vessels are moving into attack formation. Our destroyer fleet awaits your command to retaliate, Your Majesty, Krell urged, his eyes fixed not on the tactical displays, but on the Empress herself, watching for signs of weakness. Vexia stood at the center of the chaos, the facade of perfect composure completely abandoned. The luminous fractures now covered her entirely, her skin a network of brilliant fissures through which light pulsed like liquid starfire. Her silver blue eyes found Elian across the command center, where guards held him securely. The negotiations had collapsed when Admiral Harlow revealed he knew of the relationship between the Empress and the diplomat. He had publicly accused Elian of treason and Vexia of manipulation, forcing both councils into aggressive postures from which neither could back down without losing face. Your emotional compromise has brought us to the brink of destruction, Krell declared loudly enough for all to hear. The Council votes to temporarily relieve you of command under Article 7 of Imperial Protocol. That would be unwise, Vexia replied, her voice containing multitudes now, the cold precision of before layered with new depths of resonance. What you perceive as weakness is actually evolution. Demonstrations of power are required, Krell insisted. Eliminate the human. Show Earth the consequences of their aggression. All eyes turned to Elian. He met Vexia's gaze steadily, conveying his thoughts without words. Do what you must. I understand. The ship rocked with another impact. If I execute Ambassador Mercer, Vexia said calmly, what outcome do you predict, Krell? The question caught the magistrate off guard. Earth will recognize our superior resolve and stand down. Incorrect, Vexia stated. Their cultural psychology would demand escalated retaliation. Admiral, isn't that true? Harlow, who had remained on board as Earth's military attaché, looked surprised to be consulted. Yes, we would be forced to deploy our full quantum arsenal. In my council, Vexia continued, what would the destruction of Earth accomplish for our empire? It would eliminate a threat, one advisor answered hesitantly. While creating a dozen more, Vexia countered. The remaining human colonies would never submit to us after such an action. We would face endless insurgency, depleting resources across 17 systems. She moved to the central command console, her fractured hands dancing across its surface. The tactical display changed, highlighting a different approach vector. The emotion you perceive as weakness has actually expanded my strategic capacity, she announced. Previously, I calculated outcomes based on resource optimization and conquest efficiency. Now I understand the subtler mathematics of sentiment, loyalty, and cultural identity. The display zoomed in on a particular section of Earth's fleet. Those vessels, she explained, contain the families of Earth's admiralty, their protocol during first strike scenarios. Admiral Harlow's wife and son are aboard the flagship. Yet he gave the order to attack, believing it his duty. She turned to face her counsel. I understand that now, the capacity to feel deeply yet act against those feelings when necessary. It is not weakness. It is the most demanding form of strength. The ship shuddered again. Release Ambassador Mercer, she commanded. The guards hesitated, looking to Krell, who shook his head. Vexia's voice dropped to a dangerous register. That was not a request. Something in her tone, the perfect imperial command harmonized with newfound emotional intensity, compelled obedience. The guard stepped back, freeing Elian. He moved quickly to her side as she addressed both Earth's representatives and her own council. I offer a new equation, she declared. Earth maintains autonomy but joins the Vexian Empire as an equal partner, not a subject. Together we create a new governance model, one that balances logic with empathy, efficiency with freedom. Impossible, Krell objected. The Empire has never shared power. Then it will evolve, or it will fall, Vexia stated simply. The universe is not static. Neither should we be. She extended her hand toward the view screen where Earth's fleet hovered in attack formation. A beam of energy, not a weapon, but a communication stream, extended from the ship directly to Earth's flagship. I am transmitting my neural patterns directly to Earth's command, she explained. My complete thought processes, including the genuine emotional resonance I now experience when contemplating mutual destruction. They will understand I speak truth. Elian watched in wonder as the light flowing through Vexia's fractures pulsed in rhythm with the transmission. She was literally sharing herself, the full complexity of her transformed consciousness. Long minutes passed. The room held its breath. Then, slowly, Earth's weapons powered down. They're standing down, the tactical officer reported in disbelief. As will we, Vexia commanded. She turned to Elian, taking his hands in her fractured ones. The light within her pulsed stronger where they touched, as though responding to his presence. You broke me, she whispered, for his ears alone. And in breaking, I became more than my makers intended. Something new. Something beyond their calculations. We broke each other, he corrected gently, and found something stronger in the rebuilding. Her smile, the first he'd seen that reached her eyes completely, transformed her face into something breathtaking, neither human nor alien, but something gloriously unique. The transition will not be simple, she told the assembled councils. Two civilizations learning to coexist rarely is. But we will navigate it together, with both perfect logic and imperfect emotion to guide us. Later, as the diplomatic teams drafted the framework for their unprecedented alliance, Vexia and Elian stood in her observatory, watching the stars. Will the fractures ever heal? He asked, tracing the luminous lines across her palm. No, she replied. But I no longer wish them to. They are the map of my transformation, the beautiful evidence of how loving you unmade and remade me. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. In my former state, I ruled through perfect certainty. Now I understand that true wisdom lies in embracing uncertainty, in allowing oneself to be vulnerable, to be changed, to be broken and reforged. Elian smiled, drawing her closer. Sounds almost human. No, she corrected him, the light within her fractures pulsing in rhythm with his heart. Something altogether new. As their lips met, starlight streamed through the observatory dome, catching in her luminous fractures and transforming her into a constellation of light. No longer the untouchable crystal Empress, but something far more miraculous. A being capable of evolution, of change, of love. The empire of perfect order had fractured, and in its place, something infinitely more beautiful had begun to grow.